Gabriella, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me. It's a real pleasure to finally have the opportunity to talk to you about your career.
Thank you very much. It's a very nice for me to talk with you. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your childhood and growing up and your first influences? Because I like to always go back to the beginning in these podcasts to kind of get the whole origin story. So I wanted to know, what were your first connections to style and your ideas of beauty and all of that when you were growing up? Because it's clearly going to define you as an adult and in your creative process.
Yes. I was born in Torino, which is in Italy, which is a very classic and, let's say, bourgeois town. And of course, the first input for me was to see my mother very elegant, dress up in Saint Laurent. And let's say that this is the beginning for me when I love fashion. I was going with her to catwalk in Torino because there was a lot of stylists in Torino who were making like shoes, same leather than the bags and the gloves. And there was a real love for the materials and the prints and the quality of the thing. Mm-hmm. So that's the beginning. Of course, I was in a family, multicultural family, because my grandmother was Hungarian. So our culture was very open, and I learned to do things in the house like knitting or embroidering with my grandmother. And I was very much kept in the house when I was a young girl, doing a classic dance for at least 14 years. And my way of traveling was through literature. Oh. So I studied classics, and I loved how the people at beginning 1900, they used to travel, for example, Stendhal or Goethe, they used to travel in Italy and go and do that classic travel to learn how to be a whole person, with the whole culture. Mm-hmm. So I always loved to do the same thing. And when I was very young, I was in love of Salgari, Emilio Salgari, who was writing and doing designs and writing at the same time of traveling. So I fell in love with Sandokan, who was afterwards was played by Kabir Bedi, who was the movie, who was the Indian actor, very well known, and he was like king of Malaysia, all naked, dressed up with sarong, and kidnapping that lady, very tight and very beautiful English lady. So that was the base. Basically, of my way to go towards fashion. And then when I could travel, of course, I came to Paris. Mm-hmm. At 18 years old. And in Paris, I was in Sorbonne, first of all. And then I had to work to live in Paris and to stay in Paris. So I found a job in Crazy Horse, so without knowing what it was. And it was actually is the best cabaret in the world, but naked girls, So
you got hired, just so I understand, you got your first job in Paris to help pay the bills where you were at the Sorbonne studying, was to dance naked at the Crazy Horse. Is that right? Oh my goodness, that must have been such a shock for you, coming from such a family where you were, at home and studied and, in your own universe, to something like that. That's amazing.
It was a big scandal. My father didn't talk to me for at least 1 year,
Oh my goodness. Well, that opened your eyes to certain things working at the Crazy Horse, but it's interesting because you actually didn't study any kind of fashion design or anything like that. Your studies were much more intellectual. So fashion design didn't really come to you in that classic sort of way. It came to you more through your travels around the world to live that life that you had seen in books as a child. Is that right?
Yes, it's right. It came all alone. And that's why when I began to be a designer, I didn't do garments at the beginning because I didn't felt, that structure to do that. So I started to do pareo in Bali when I went the first time in Bali. And that's how Antik Batik was born in a ethic way, doing work with the handicraft people. And that was my beauty of discovering countries without talking the language, but through the artist and through the art of doing something. So we understood each other and we support each other, and I support many factories putting air condition, heater, increasing the structure of the factory, taking care of the people. So it became like that, something like a magic way of doing fashion.
Well, I mean, I think it's so interesting because you got your start is almost the same origin story as Ralph Lauren, who started selling ties on the streets in New York. You got pareo, the wrap skirts that you wear with those, like the kind of sarong things that you would wear out on the beach. At the beginning, I guess it was just for fun, and then that connection with the artisans. At what point did you go, okay, I'm making these pareo, but I could do something more, like this could be my work? And what made you decide to actually go in that direction and make this become your life's work to a certain extent?
Because it went very well, very fast. So I was in something that was going better and better. So after the pareo, I started to do knitted hat like my mother used to do when I was a young girl, like that, with the flower. And I started to do that, little bags, shoes. And then I came to the garments. And the first garment was transparent, like, in Crazy Horse, you had those lights to cover the body of the girls with designs. And so I started to do transparent things, but also a lot of embroideries, because my wish was, for example, traveling around and you see something that you love and you wear when you are traveling. And when you come back to Paris, it's just not wearable because it's too ethnic. Mm-hmm. So I changed that way of doing things that they come from embroideries, they come from a common background, because also Hungary helped me a lot to go to India, because Hungarian embroideries and prints, they have something like from India,
Yes,
and
yes,
and so I did that fashion, but in a structured way, and in that you can wear in a town in a way that you are elegant and you don't look like a hippie.
No, I know, it's the same thing. Like you have so much. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but like when you go to Disneyland and you put on the Disney ears and you everybody's doing it, it looks great, but then you go back home and you never can wear it again because it doesn't work with where you are. So tell me though, because you started the company, correct me if I'm wrong, in 1992, and that was right at the point when minimalism, it was really like, anything that was hippie, chic, and boho, that was not where things were at. How were you able to engage with the consumer and grow the business in a time when fashion was in such a different direction?
Yes, it was different direction, and we were quite alone in doing prints and embroideries. But what I found very helpful in Paris, for example, when I start with the pareo, in winter they become shesh, they become scarves. And the fashion at that time was very different from France to Italy. In Italy, in summer you wear summery material, and in winter you have to wear winter material. In France, it was always something different. I think that idea of the colony that the French used to have from shesh, they used to put the scarf from summer around the neck, and so that became a fashion, and everybody loved the pareo put in a scarf. So that's
really smart. That is really, really smart, because it's true. I mean, you try and take a French woman away from her scarf. It's like she clutches, it's like her life's blood. Her scarf is such a signal of her femininity in France. It really is, especially in winter. And French women can wrap it in so amazing ways, all these different ways. I want to ask a kind of a question that, I don't know. I want to know, did you create the company so that you could continue to travel, or did the travel just become part of the necessity of the company? Because I know you have a passion for travel, and I think you travel 4 months out of the year. So I'm wondering, is your company kind of an avenue through which you can continue to travel and see the world?
Yes, I think it's the company was a big excuse, big alibi to travel. You know, I travel everywhere, and everywhere I went, I work with people who could do or could knit or could print or could do something. So I start, of course, with Bali, with the pareo, and the pareo were all made with batiks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I discovered India. India was the heaven, because in India you can do whatever you want, embroideries with beads, with sequins, different kind of prints, and meeting people around the world. For me, traveling has no meaning if you don't meet people. You know, you can be in the best place in the world, and like a postcard, the best place, but if you are alone, there is no way. So for me, it was learning a culture, visiting people, stay with them. Before my son was born, now he is 13. Because before he was born, I used to spend months and months in India. Then when he started to go to school, we used to spend 1.5 months. And the family, I was a part of the family of the artisan I was working with. So for me, traveling it was the first thing.
Okay, good to know. Well, that I want to ask you a little bit of question that's a tangent to that, is that a lot of designers, you know, talk about their inspiration, and a lot of young designers, it's all about what they see on Google and what they see on Instagram. But can you talk to me about what you did a little bit just now, but what is the difference? How do you get inspired when you're actually feet on the ground in a country? Does that inspire you in a different way than if you're just seeing it? And how does it? I mean, clearly it inspires you in a different way, but how does it inspire you in a different way when you're actually physically in a place, when you're trying to design a collection?
First of all, the design, when I'm at the stage of creation, the design, I do the design here, and then what inspired me the best, for example, you know, it's a time of coloring. It's a time of designing. Of course, your eye see everywhere, from books, from paintings, from everywhere, the prints. And then when it's a time of coloring, a lot of the painting inspire me, especially in my heart, it's Mitteleuropa. So a lot of the painters from the Mitteleuropa, they can be Klimt, Kokoschka, all this kind of color, but also Piero della Francesca, also, you know, many different things. Mm-hmm. And then when I go in the places like India, for example, to realize the collection, what is beautiful is that the defect become the beauty. What you design evolve. You know, it's a continual evolution. Mm-hmm. And so at one point you have to stop, otherwise the collection never ended. But what is very beautiful is the evolution through the artisanal hand.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really interesting. So you're telling me that it actually, Instagram and Google and all of that can be very inspiring, can help with the color in those early, but then it is when you go and see the artisans and you work hand in hand, that it goes in a new direction, an unexpected direction, because you have that complicity with the local artisan. Okay.
No, I was saying also, I'm not very good at Google and all these kind of things. For example, the prints, we do all by hand. I have an agenda, I write everything on my agenda. I don't write on my laptop, because I lose the poetry, you know, the effect that is natural. And also all the prints, all the embroideries, of course, they are handmade. You know, you have one needle and you go like that. So it's very important also to have the coloring. When you embroidery, for example, when you do embroideries, how you put the sequence, the heart of the flower, or the leaves, or the, you know. So it's very important not to have something only on laptop, but to have something real.
I know, I can speak from experience. I have one of your Antik Batik sequins jackets. I've had it for 15 years and it has not moved. It's perfect. I still use it on my big occasions. So you can tell that the artisanal hand is in there, and that that workmanship is at the forefront of the design. It shows in the fact that it's lasted so long and the fact that it just looks amazing. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that aspect of the artisan, because you and your company, just by the nature of the company, are very sustainable and eco-friendly, not just in the materials that you use, but you talked more about this idea of working for a long time with certain different designers or artisans in different parts of the world, building these long-term relationships. So helping with, with fair trade and the where they work, and that everything is up to norms. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because back when you started, the idea of eco-friendly fashion or sustainability was not à la mode or in fashion as it is now. So how did you convince people that was important? How did you make that a core aspect of your business? And how do you think it's evolving now?
It was something really natural at the beginning. And then I have the impression now, after all that situation that we stay blocked in the house for 2.5 months, we really need to come back to the ground, be more natural. We don't want plastic anymore. But we want the real things, and we want the real from the beginning to the end, not that it is becoming only a fashion. It's very important, of course, when you do the work with handicraft, to do a sort of slow fashion, to give time to time. So I had that habit to give time to time since the beginning. I remember the first time when I went in Bali and I had the first big order, and I was very excited. I pushed the artisans to do faster, and they were saying to me, sakit, which means I'm sick because you push me and I'm becoming out of balance. So from that day, 30 years ago, I understood what it was important in that philosophy, to give time to the people to do the right things and not to do it in rush, because the love is from the beginning to the end. It's a message you have to give. So for me, to do the things in an ethic way, it was the solution. Also, when you have to be habit with the country you are working with. You cannot arrive with a big contract and you have to respect this and you have to respect that. You have to bring the people to understand that respecting the people that they are working for you gives better work. Give them the fun, and the air condition will make them work better, So all these little steps that you achieve, it's not something for the publicity. It's something that you do because the work is done with the heart, and it's done in a good way,
Well, I think that the world definitely is going in the direction of Antik Batik, and that we're wanting things that are more sustainable. We're wanting to buy less but better, and we're wanting to have that connection and that story, and supporting independent designers. You're an independent designer. This is your own company. You launched it. You fund it. Do you have any advice for young women today or young designers today who want to launch their own company? Because having an independent brand today can be quite complicated, especially in the markets that we live in. But I'm curious to see what you think.
I'm a hard worker. It's really complicated, in fact, because you need to have how you say cerveau gauche, cerveau droit.
Left brain, right brain. Yep.
Yes, you need to be creative. I put the creative part in the middle of everything, but you need to handle that creativity. You need to work to make the money coming in and everything. So I would say 90% of transpiration and 10% of inspiration.
I do love that line. That's good. Let's talk a little bit more about the fashion evolution, because right now we have a lot of designers talking about everything is so fast, seasons don't make sense anymore, clothing arrives when it's, summer clothing arrives when it's freezing outside, and vice versa. What are your thoughts about how you would like to see the fashion industry change as far as the way it's run and its cycles and everything like that?
I would like to see a little slowdown, actually, to take more time, and I tell you that COVID time for me was very helpful, because again, because we are trapped in the running all the time, and even if you want to slow down. And at that time, I found myself dreaming like I was a little girl dreaming in my room, you know? So creativity is the best part. We never have to lose it, you know?
No, I agree. I agree. I know that you launched a children's line, that there's talk, there's discussion, or maybe it's already happened in interior or furniture. Can you talk to me about how you want to evolve the brand now? I mean, you've got a great footprint. People know the brand. It's got a great DNA, brand recognition. How do you want to grow your company going forward?
Yeah, I think Antik Batik has a very strong DNA, and he's a brand that is more of art of life. It's not only fashion, it can be everything. We just did a pop-up in Beaumarchais with interior cushions, mattress, many different things. We will do another one in Christmas. I think it's the best brand to do many different things, even something, even perfumes.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I live in that way. I mean, I like natural things. I cure myself with natural oils. I learned, I wanted to learn like les rois mages. They were coming from Asia through the Mitteleuropa and down to our countries, how to read the stars, how to cure yourself, how to bring the saffron and the silks, and everything was handmade. And that's the beauty, you know.
No, I agree. I think it really is very much. It has all of the roots, the foundation to become a lifestyle brand, like you're talking about. Absolutely, for sure. Where do you want to travel to next? I mean, I know you've traveled the world, but is there a location in the world that you haven't visited that you're like dying to see and discover?
Many different places.
Not surprised.
I traveled just a little, not so much, unfortunately. I just went in Mongolia, and was a magic journey. Every time I do a big trip like that, I go with a photographer, and we do very nice reportage with the models. And in Mongolia, it was just magic, you know. I would like to go to many different places, maybe more untouched by humans, which are very rare in this earth.
No kidding. I know. Well, listen, I think I want to ask you now my 5 generic fashion questions. And when you decide for your next trip, I definitely want you to DM me or send me a message, because I'd be very curious to where you decide to go next that's untouched. So, all right, so here are the 5 generic fashion questions. What is your favorite piece of clothing that you own?
Something, I have 2 different things. I have one dress, Yves Saint Laurent, that was my mother dress, but because it was my mother dress, because I have many other things, but I have a pair of shoes from her that were done by Aldo Sacchetti, who was a guy who was doing shoes in Torino, and every lady had his own wood foot done.
Sculpted foot design. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was young when I used to go with my mother there, and it was really magic, you know.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. That's really touching. All right, my next question is, most men and women don't have a huge budget to put into fashion. That's why there's so much fast fashion out there in the world, although the world does seem to be getting educated about buying less but better. But if there was one thing you would say for a woman or a man to really invest money in, one garment or piece of clothing, what would you say that one piece would be?
I would say for men, it's even more obvious. I would say something that lasts. What is very important, I was born and raised with the quality of the materials, you know, and I like the material that are very that last, you know, that are I love to have things, for example, in my closet. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't say that, but that last for 30 years, even more, you know, and they are still perfect, and the line is perfect, and the material is perfect, you know.
I'm the same. I have pieces that I bought, your pieces, 15 years ago, and they don't move, and they still serve a purpose, and they're still wonderful to this day. So your idea would be for them not put one particular piece, but pick a piece that's well made. That's the thing you want to invest in. Well made. Okay. My next question is, who is your favorite fashion designer, living or dead?
I have many. Of course, I tell you Yves Saint Laurent, Alaya. I love Alaya. because I love the designers who make ladies beautiful. So mostly I like the one who are no more here.
Unfortunately. Well, I mean, there's still a couple of few good ones left out there that are still creating. Thank goodness, knock on wood. What trend will you never follow? What fashion trend will you never follow?
The one that makes women vulgish.
Makes women what?
Vulgar.
Vulgar, vulgar. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So we'll just leave it broad. We'll be very broad. Anything that makes a woman look vulgar. Okay. And then my last question for you is, what do you love most about fashion?
The magic. The magic. You can wear a dress and you become a princess, you know. It's the magic.
Gabriella, grazie mille. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. It's just a delight to be able to speak with you and to discover your world. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Merci. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.